Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey guys, so welcome to the show today. I'm really excited for today. We're going to have a fun guest on. It's Lance Juhas, and he is the co-chief executive officer of Piada Italian Street Food, a role he assumed in December 2024. He also serves as chief operating officer and chief development officer, overseeing operations, operational services, and the company's real estate and development strategy. He's responsible for driving performance, scalability, and disciplined execution across the organization. With more than 36 years in the restaurant industry, Lance is a seasoned operator known for leading multi-unit brands through growth and transformation. Since joining Piada in 2016, he has been instrumental in shaping the company's operational model, strengthening unit-level performance, and building systems to support long-term expansion. Prior to Piada, Lance spent 16 years with the Bravo Brio restaurant group and held leadership roles with J. Alexander's and Houston's. He began his career at the restaurant level, grounding his hands-on, performance-driven leadership style. He holds a degree in hospitality management from Ferris State University. So welcome, Lance. So good to have you.
Thank you. That's a lot there. I didn't realize it was so much that I was doing.
I know, right? Sometimes I'll read the bios and it's like, whoa, I do that. Yes, you do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how it all melds together, but the cool thing is that the titles themselves doesn't really matter, but it's, the things that you're doing, they all kind of, all the disciplines kind of meld together. Right. So, so it's kind of nice. I mean, it's a lot to do, keeps me busy. But love doing what I do. Love Piada.
That's awesome. And I'm really excited to get into what you're doing there. Piada Italian Street Food. So for listeners who don't know what the company is, let's share a little bit about what it is so they know what we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. So Piada is Italian Street Foods, a fast casual Italian restaurant company. I like to say it's kind of first mover advantage. There are some other companies out there that are trying to do Italian in a fast casual way, but they're a little smaller. Some do fresh pasta. We don't do fresh pasta, but some do. But we were started in 2010 by Chris Duty. So I previously worked for Chris Duty at Bravo Brio Restaurant Group. He started that in 1992, I think it was, with his brother Rick. And when we were bought, Bravo Brio Restaurant Group, by two private equities, one of the brothers had to move on, and Chris, being, I guess, the youngest, drew the shortest straw, and he was on his merry way and out of the business, and at least out of BBRG, not the business itself. He went home. I think he was probably retired for a week, and his wife looked at him and said, "You got to start doing something." And if anybody knows Chris loves to be in the mix of it. So he really wanted to stay in the Italian segment, didn't want to do casual dining, and was really interested in kind of the format of fast casual. And so what he did is he started studying. He knew he wanted to stay in Italian, started studying Panera and Chipotle, because at that time, 2010, Panera was still, doing really well. Not that they're not now, but they were, kind of the big thing then. And Chipotle was older in their life cycle, not at 3,700 restaurants like they are now. But he knew that format is what he wanted to do. Format being, the layout inside the restaurant and the ordering system, how the queue works. So he spent a lot of time in the restaurants in Columbus. And I think after a while, the manager started looking at him like he was some weirdo kind of hanging out in the restaurants. So once he figured out, hey, this is kind of the style I want to do, now I have to figure out the food. And so he went to Italy a couple times, and he ended up going to Rimini, small town in Italy. And there was a gentleman there that owned a restaurant and was gracious enough to take Chris into the back, into the kitchen. And Chris is trained as a chef, and went back into the kitchen and showed him how to make the piadina. Which is the flatbread that we would call the piada here in the US and at Piada Italian Street Food. But the piadina is a round flat bread that if you go to Italy, it's filled with either like prosciutto or sapressata and rocket, and it's cut in half and then cut again into two triangles. And he really fell in love with the simplicity of the dough and of the bread, because it's really, flour, olive oil, sea salt, and that's pretty much it for the vehicle. And so he was so inspired that on his trip home on the airplane, and we still have the bev nap, he asked the flight attendant for a couple of bev naps because he didn't have any paper with him. And he actually drew out his first restaurant queue. And then he actually started putting in, okay, these are some of the things I would think of for menu item while he was on the plane. And, it's a good flight. So, if you're, 8 hours, you have plenty of time to start doing some things. And he kind of jotted down what he thought would be a great vehicle for the US, and really started writing and jotting down names, because Piada Italian Street Food wasn't really our technically first name that he thought of. It just morphed into Piada Italian Street Food. So we got back to the US and had his team in Columbus, and he had a office in Columbus that was built out with a kitchen in it. And he made a line or a piada inside the office, and really started doing focus groups on, hey, what does everybody feel about these menu items? The name, this is what everything's going to look like. He had the white tile there. He had our furniture, some examples of that. And it really, a lot of it, honestly, was menu wise. What are we going to do with the menu? Because the piadina, probably wasn't going to translate very well in the United States. Not that it wouldn't, and not that the guests aren't sophisticated enough, because I do think that, guests are discerning. I think now the guests are so into understanding food. TV Food Network has definitely helped. And I think that the palate's a little bit better than it was probably in 2010. But he still was like, okay, I want to do chopped salads that are Italian based. I want to do a piadina, which is our piada. And those were the two items that we actually started with. And so our piadina was a little bit thinner, so a little bit like a tortilla. And then he rolled it almost like a burrito. I hate saying that, but it's almost like a burrito. But it's definitely different, a different vehicle. And so we kind of felt that he felt at that time, the public will understand this. They'll understand the piadina. So we did the focus group. They did the focus groups. I wasn't even with them at that point. Did the focus groups. And it was funny when he was going around and asking the guests, that were there, hey, what do you feel? How do you feel about the salads and the piadas? They had some Ohio State football players that were at the one of the focus groups, and they all said these piadas are fantastic. But of course, they're all 300-pound linemen at that point, and they're like, but it's big, but we need a little bit something more in them. And so the chef at that time was kind of like, oh, what can I put in here? And he went back in the back and had some angel hair pasta. So he was about ready to make that faux pas of, we're going to put carbs in carbs, right? And you really don't want to do carbs and carbs. But he was like, let's see how they like this. So he filled it with some more ingredients, put some pasta in it, took it back out to the football players, and they ate them, and they said, this is fantastic. So that kind of was like, hey, maybe we need to start bringing some pasta. Well, cooking pasta and putting in the piadinas or in the piadas. Well, they were like, well, what are we going to do with all this extra pasta? Because originally pasta was not on our menu. And so the chef at that time went back and said, hey, I'm going to build some pastas. I'll make a classic carbonara. Ours isn't as classic as a classic carbonara because we do have Alfredo in ours, and anybody knows carbonara, it's not Alfredo, but it was very user friendly. Did marinara and did a spicy diavolo, and the pastas were a hit. And again, originally not part of what we were going to do. And to this day, pastas are 51% of our sales. And it, goes back and forth between the piatas and the salads for the other 24 or 25, depending on the time of year. This time, as it starts to get a little warmer outside, the salads will start going up a little bit. But, just a really kind of brief overview of what we are and how it was started. To this day, we only have one piada that actually has pasta in it. It's not on our menu if you walk in the restaurant. If you order online on our app, so if you go through mypiada.com and order either on our app or on our website, we do have a few piadas that are $9. It's a special little category. And we have a chicken parm piada that actually does have pasta in it. But if a guest comes in a restaurant and they order a piada, you're more than welcome to ask the chef that's behind the line to put pasta in your piada. I don't particularly care for it that way. I like the piadas the way they are now. But yeah, it's been great. And I think, the chef created items are definitely a hit. And that's really what I think what drives our continued success in the category and continued success with bringing guests back, more often and quicker. So.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate the synopsis. And what's interesting too, is I know that you and Chris, you guys are co-CEOs. So
Yes.
what made you guys decide to be co-CEOs as opposed to separating it completely?
I think I'm a little ambitious. So and in a good way. My job, I've always said to folks that worked underneath me or even over me, if when they would look at me and say, well, when am I ready? When am I ready for that next step? And I would always look at them and say, you're ready for that next step when you make your boss's job obsolete. Meaning when they come in, everything's taken care of. So even, when I was an assistant manager at a restaurant or a kitchen manager, when I was at J. Alexander's, how did I know when I was ready to run the kitchen myself? Well, when the KM came in and he kind of looked around and was like, well, I don't really have anything to do here, but, work the line or talk to, the team members and go out and talk to the guests. Same as the front of the house, when your GM would come in, everything's done, lineup's done, everything's put together. So I think with Chris, it was not that he's not obsolete, right? Chris is great with wonder and invention. He is an amazing inventor. He is a great wanderer. He is his knowledge of the business, because we're all students of the business, but his wonder about the business and his invention is really, kind of what he does now. And really, having that phone call, or not phone call, but the, his job really is to talk to our private equity team now with El Catterton. That's what he does. And some of the other investors. And I, get the lucky part of having the phone on 24/7, which is great. And doing all the other stuff, which is great. I love doing all that stuff. He loves it also. But, and again, I'm not tooting my horn, as he said, you're a better operator than I ever was. So you might as well take the reins. and it's been great. It really has been great. He has given me the ability really to spread my wings and make mistakes with him being there. He is an amazing mentor. I can call him of course I can call him at any time, but I can call him at any time for anything if I have any questions. And he's always, eager to give feedback, whether I want to hear it or not. And so it's worked really well, because some of the things, I don't want to say that he doesn't want to do them, but I just don't think that they excite him anymore, on the day-to-day part. And that's okay, because, it's been great being able to help build this brand, and really learn, some of the things on the, as a CEO, that not that you didn't know, but you didn't get as many reps at, and this has been great. You have a captain and a co-captain, right? In an airplane, but they both know how to fly the plane.
Yep.
Right. Now the cool thing is that we're both in charge, We just have set, pieces that we're in charge of. And yes, if I ever want to do anything or change, I do have to call him on some things. So it's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And he'll either go, yeah, that's a dumb idea. Or he'll say, hey, yeah, let's give that a go. But it's been great. I think it also helps in transition when it comes to a point in time when he wants to, maybe be founder and chairman of the board.
Yeah.
And do something else in his, down the road. And not that he has anything in mind, not that he's said to me, but, and that's okay. There's a point where you've been, you know how to do it up to here, and other people have done, have managed more and done more. So, so it's worked out very well at this point. It's been great.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you guys have really clearly defined the roles in a sense of like Chris knows exactly what he's doing, you know exactly what you're doing, and you guys really play and feed off of each other in that dynamic, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And you sound like even with his vision, like it sounds like he shares the vision. You go, you make it happen. It's like you help to bring it to life in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that, in the beginning, it wasn't easy in the beginning, right? In the beginning, it wasn't easy because I give me the reins, give me everything, and, you're really not always ready for all of that. But now it's, I do feel me taking over more of the responsibility of the company in its entirety. And, we invite Chris when there's menu tastings and little changes we're doing for that. And he comes in and loves to be part of that. But it's been a good ride. Chris is, when I decided to leave Bravo Burrito Restaurant Group, and it was just kind of a not fluke. I was already thinking about leaving and doing something else. I've been there 16 years. And the week that I actually went to New York for an interview, and the week that I got back and had a meeting with the company that I was working for, Chris called me during a break. And I had already decided, my wife had already looked at me and said, why don't you try to start looking to do something different? And Chris called me that week and was like, hey, I need an operator. Are you interested? And I'm like, oh, it's like fate. Like we're getting the Blues Brothers back. Yeah, we're getting the band back together again. This is great. So, and it is good. It is nice because one of our corporate chef, Matt Harding, our chief culinary officer, I worked with him when I started at Bravo in 2000. Well, it was January 2000. He was the executive chef at the restaurant that I was going to be the GM at. And so the three of us have known each other for over 20 years. And it does get to a point when you spend that much time together, you kind of do know what the other person's already thinking.
Yeah.
And it is nice because they're not afraid to call you on your BS, if that makes sense. Those conversations it's nothing personal. You're just able to have some really deep conversations without anybody really getting their feelings hurt. Because there are a lot of things you have to talk about sometimes and that aren't always as popular to talk about, but it's been great. Yeah.
I love that. That's very cool.
The devil you know or the devil you don't know, right?
Yeah. Well, it's that dynamic where it's you guys are comfortable collaborating, but you're also comfortable having the conflict enough to a degree that you can move forward. And
Exactly.
I'm curious for this one too, because this one probably be a pretty big answer, but you guys have had significant positive same-store sales growth, right? In all of your locations. So I would really love to know what you've put in place to ensure that happens. And so the audience knows as well, is just sharing how many locations, because we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah. So we have 63. And by the end of the year, we have 3 more openings by the end of the year. So we'll have 66 at that point. And then we actually have a location going into Terminal B at Dallas Fort Worth Airport. So that'll be our first non-traditional, our first licensing agreement for Piada, which we're super excited for because we're doing very well in Texas. And yeah, I mean 29 quarters of positive same store sales and traffic. Some of those quarters traffic was not as positive as sales, but still very close to positive. But majority of those quarters both were up. And really it's the secret of the sauce is taking care of the guest.
Mm-hmm.
The secret of the sauce. It's taking care of your internal guests, which are your team members, your employees, and taking care of the external guests who are coming in and paying for us to have the ability to grow more stores. And really, outside of recipes and making sure we get the food right, the hospitality seems like it's the easiest, but it is the most difficult because, you deal with people, you deal with people's personalities, but we have a great team in the field with multi-units. We have a great group of partners, which is what we call our GMs. And they all really believe in where Piada is going and what Piada can do. And I love nothing more than visiting those restaurants and seeing, the partners and their chefs and supervisors, and watching them, throughout their shift. And that's really where it is. I mean, it's where the rubber meets the road is in the stores, right? It's all about when the guest comes in, you don't know what type of day they're having, and the cool thing about the restaurant industry is we are one of the only industries out there that when a guest walks through your door, 99.9% of the time, they're going to spend money, right? It's not like, walking into a jewelry store and you walk around and you're like looking at watches or what have you, and you're saying to yourself, well, I'll come back and I'll look at that and I'll just come back, and you never go back. Or maybe you do. But in the restaurant business, we know that this guest is going to come in, and we know they're going to come in and spend money, and they're spending their hard-earned money, and it may be on themselves, it may be for their family. And our job is to make sure that it goes seamlessly. Now, it's not a perfect world. I know we are going to make mistakes. But then it's about how do we, on the mistake side, how do we make up for those imperfections and those mistakes that maybe that we have, that the guest has with us. And our team, does a really, really good job of reaching out to guests that give them feedback that might not always be positive, but they are all over reaching out and physically, verbally wanting to speak with someone about their experience. And really, that's kind of the secret of the sauce. It is hospitality. It is taking care of the guest. It is, as I like to say, don't take the crab out of the crab cakes, right? It's, what's gotten you to the table and to the dance is going to continue to keep you in the dance. It's just now, how do you go about and maybe change some of those things up to make it relative, right? But the one thing you can never have to worry about is that hospitality will always be a part of the business. And the day you forget about that, or the day that doesn't happen, then your business is in trouble. It's not, yes, technology will make it easier. Sure. AI can write a schedule for you. AI can't talk to an employee or a team member that's not having a great day, that has to work that shift and pepping them up to get them ready for a great shift. And then really kind of honing into, after the shift, how can we help you with whatever was going on with you that day? Or AI can't help you with that. A robot can't help you with that. It's people that are going to continue to get the business down the road that it's going to go down. Sure. The other stuff will make it easy, it'll scheduling will be easier. Okay. But you'll never be able to take the people in hospitality out.
Yeah. And I'm curious as well, because even just instilling this dynamic of hospitality within the culture, within the system, what does that look like on the back end? Like when you're hiring individuals, when you're training people, it just to be able to achieve that level of a higher end hospitality in, fast service restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. Be honest, it's not 100%, right? There's always,
Yeah.
you're always going to have, something that's not going to go the way that you thought it was going to go. But the partners and the chefs, when they're hiring inside the restaurants, they have a very good group, a bucket of questions to ask. They really try to understand who that would be team member, someone who could be a team member, is it going to be the right fit, right? And sometimes it's about asking questions. It's about asking them, hey, tell me about your worst day that you ever had at a job, and what happened and how did you handle it? And sometimes listening to those answers, you're like, okay, well, maybe this person really doesn't care about hospitality, or maybe this person was so distraught about how they made someone's experience not great, but how did they recover from that? Because I like to tell people, listen, it's not a perfect science, right? I am as hospitable as can be. Like I love talking to people, as you can tell. And I have no problem. I have zero problems talking to people. But I will tell you, in my day of running restaurants, I have probably ruined quite a few Mother's Days. But how did I recover from that? Right? How did I make up for the table not being ready at the reservation time? Did I have appetizers already on the table for those guests? Did we go down the road and buy flowers for mom to put at her table because we were behind on the schedule? All those little pieces, and I think that it comes, again, it comes from our chefs and our partners. And when you walk into a restaurant, and I always like to pick on one restaurant, it's Plano in Plano, Texas. And our partner there is Patrick. And Patrick's going to do more for us because he's got a lot of runway. But when you walk into Patrick's restaurant, it feels inviting. It feels hospitable. Like there's great hospitality. And if he's there, he turns around and has the biggest smile on his face. And he's not just happy to see me, because it's not always, it's not about me. He is that way when a guest walks in the building, and so are the rest of his team. And it's just, that is the part that you can't teach, but people have it inside them. I mean, look at Chick-fil-A. It's a chicken sandwich, right? Is it a great chicken sandwich? I mean, it's good. It's got great flavor. I know they're working on their fries. It's the hospitality. I mean, they're doing 11 million per restaurant. I mean, come on. I mean, that's unheard of for quick service.
Yeah.
But every time, they have those employees out there with a tent and it's raining on them, and you go up to order, and there's, they're very hospitable. They have great hospitality. And so, we try to figure it out of the gate. And it's not always 100%, but it's kind of where we roll on that. Give it to the team members out in the field. I mean, they're
very cool.
They do all the heavy lifting.
I'm curious as well, because even that dynamic of taking care of the employees internally, right? So we got to look at the external, but the internal dynamic. Yeah. What would you say is maybe something unique or different that you're doing within the culture to ensure that the employees are happy?
We listen to them. I mean, not everything we're going to do, right?
That is fair, by the way. There's some crazy requests.
But, the thing is that, you learn a lot about your guests and about what they want from your employees. Well, when you go into a restaurant and you listen to what they're talking about, what they're saying, and you ask them, let's just say we were rolling out, a new Piada or something else. We were rolling out something, and we started asking our employees at restaurants, what do you think about this? We're going to do X. They may tell us there's going to be so much, it's going to slow the line down because of this, and this, because our chefs, when they're putting things together, they're working in a very perfect world, right? They don't have someone who didn't just show up. They don't have, at the office, they don't have a line out the door. I really want to know what it is that they can tell us about, something that we're thinking about rolling out. And I think, I really do, want to hear what their, hopes and dreams are.
Mhm.
I have a packet. I don't have it with me. I have it's in a different spot here. But I have an envelope that has every partner's hopes and dreams on a piece of paper.
Mhm.
We were at the GM meeting, and I was opening remarks, and I stopped everybody and had everybody put down on a piece of paper, their top, 2 or 3 hopes and dreams, whether they're personal or professional, because I want to read what their hopes and dreams are,
Mhm.
and in what I told them. And I said, I want to try to help you get you where you want to be. I may not be able to, pay for a new Ferrari for you, right? You want a Ferrari and or whatever. But if you're interested in, your first vacation to Europe, right? How do you do it? How do you do it on a budget? How do you do this? And and there's ways to do it, because I like to go to Europe on a budget, right? And so how did you get into your position? How do I get to the next level? Or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I try to reach out to at least one of those, 1 or 2 of those team members a week, because we have these meetings every 2 years, so it's a little bit easier now. But I try to reach out to them and say, hey, how can I help you on this? Or or they may say, hey, I've figured that out on my own, but I appreciate you reaching out.
Mhm.
And I think that's the big thing when when the co-CEO is reaching out. Again, it's not about me, but that's just how everybody is at
Mhm.
with Piata. Whether it's my VP of Ops, or regional directors of operations, or director of marketing. We're all very interested in our team members,
Mhm.
in what they need to make them successful. Because let's be honest with ourselves, we can't we can't run, $160 million business with people at the support center. It's a support center. We're not running the restaurants, right? We're doing the strategy, and we're doing all that. It's the folks inside the 4 walls they're doing the heavy lifting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I'm curious as well, as you're describing this, it's a very family style environment.
Yeah.
So, and you have an Italian restaurant,
Yeah.
basically. It's almost like the culture of Italy has just crossed over from not just food, but also like into the cultural dynamic. Do you have like an Italian background, or does Chris have an Italian background?
No, I am no, I'm Slovakian, Hungarian, and a little bit of Irish, Scottish. So
Hmm.
and Chris, Chris is not Italian. No, not
Yeah.
Italian. But I think because Italian, when you, as you said, because you're Italian, and we've
I'm
had the
Italian. You
conversation.
guys sound
I
Italian.
I grew up in an area. I grew up in Detroit. And I only say Detroit because I didn't grow up in Detroit proper. I was a little north of 8 Mile, so I was not Detroit proper.
Mhm.
But I grew up in an area that had my high school. It was a big class, big high school, and I'm telling you, 60% of the students that went to my school were Italian.
Yeah.
It's Sicilian for on majority of them. So I had a lot of friends that were Italian, and when you go to their house, it's like,
Mhm.
you better be ready to eat, even though you didn't get there to eat, right?
Yep.
And if you didn't sit down and eat, then you were insulting,
It's very insulting.
your
Yes.
friends, right? And you're
Yeah.
insulting your friend's family. So I always, restaurants are great places, right? And when
Mhm.
we all work very closely together. And I think just like the Italians, and just like with an Italian family or Italian meal, you know, whether Nona's in the kitchen all day on Sunday, which you still owe me your Sunday recipe. Um, uh, you know, but the family's there helping Nona, they're, well, helping, getting in her way, really, right? But wanting to learn what is so great about your Sunday gravy, what is so great about that, and learning all those pieces. So it's kind of the same way, right?
Mhm.
It's the gathering around the table, right?
Mhm.
And that's where conversations have, that's where life has, that's living, right? That is sitting back and having conversations with your family. So yeah, I mean, as Piata, as a team, you know they are family.
Mhm.
They really are, and the team members and even the guests that come in. So it just exudes that, and it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great company.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. That's awesome. No, that's fun. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm curious as well, even with the specific site selection process that you have. So share a little bit about how you're choosing the new locations for Piata.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, AI assistance. So the cool thing about AI right now, whether it's Placer or SiteZeus or whoever you're using, it definitely spits out the demographic that you're going for. Back in the day, it was, your broker would put all that together. But we know, with our successful locations, which are majority of them, we know kind of what makes Piata click when it comes to demographic, age, the amount of daytime pop, the amount of regular pop, in the 3 mile radius is what we use. And then when we see those pieces, then we look and say, okay, what's available in those areas? Is it an end cap with a pickup window? Really, that's what we want: end caps with a pickup window or without, sitting up on the street, because we are Piada Italian Street Food. We want to be on the street, right? And then it's our competitors,
Mhm.
and I love to be next to our competitors. How are they doing? And I'll just use Kava as the behemoth. We all know Chipotle is the behemoth, but you know, we do very well next to Kava. We do very well next to Chipotle, and I think we actually um
Mhm.
we play off of each other. Meaning,
Yeah.
if you're in an area where guests can come and have lunch, and they're figuring out where they want to go, they could go to Cava one day and they can go to Piata the next day, and then they can go to Chipotle if they want to the next day. It's that variety is the spice of life, right? And so I look to see how are they doing. The
Mhm.
brokers will tell you this restaurant's doing, you know, X teen million. And then I go in after I leave the brokers, and we'll go in and we'll talk to the managers. We'll
Mhm.
go in and we'll say, hey, it's a great restaurant. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. What are you normally doing a week, or a month, a week's easier because then you don't throw them off if you're asking for a month. But what kind of intel are they going to give you? Because sometimes the brokers, they may not know the most up to date. They may, think that this restaurant's doing really, really well. But then you talk to the manager and they say, yeah, we're doing, 70% of our business is coming at
Mhm.
lunch. And dinners are really, really slow here. And so we'll come back at dinner anyway and sit in the parking lot and watch how the guests are coming in and going out. And I've spent a lot of time in parking lots. I mean, thank God nobody's trespassed me. It's just sitting there and watching, guests going in and out of restaurants and saying, okay, well, this area does look busy. Like, it's busy right after work. It's busy through the heat of dinner. And it dies at a pretty good time. And then the economics have to be right.
Mhm.
It's got to make sense, build out cost wise, rent wise, rent factor, because there is an ROI around it, right? We do want to pay back within a certain amount of time. And again, it's not a perfect science. But if you're 80 to 90% accurate on that, then you've got a pretty good recipe for success on that.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm
Yeah.
curious too because you are highly active in doing all this stuff, kind of going to the
Mhm.
restaurants and checking it out and staking it out. What is it about that you love so much? Because that technically is something you could delegate.
Yeah. So I do love being in the restaurants.
Okay.
That is, one of the hard parts is not walking away from that, but not being in the throes of the battle day in and day out.
Hmm.
Lord knows you would not want me on saute on a regular restaurant right now. That used to be my thing, but now I'm a little old. I'd be a little slow, I'm sure. But I love the feel. Like I love the feel. I love the hustle and bustle. I am giving up the reins a little bit on development. So I will not go out on all the initial visits. When the gentlemen that are doing that piece now come to me and say, okay, we've been on 2 tours. We're down to we're down to, 10 sites. 5 of them we're super high on, and we need for you to now come and check those out. So we're already in LOI. But we want to make sure that these are good to go to lease, and you feel good about those pieces. And subsequently, that's what I used to do with Chris. So when Chris, when I started doing the development, I'd go look at all the sites with Chef Matt, and then I'd call him up and say, listen, we have 3 or 4 great ones here in Dallas. I'm going to need you for a day to come check them out, and just give us your thoughts around that. But there is something about being in the 4 walls. We're being in the business, the restaurant business, you have to be a little off. And so the hustle and bustle is just kind of, it's the organized chaos. Like it is organized chaos that it's just, you're in the throes, and all of a sudden you turn and it's 10 p.m. and you're like, oh, hey, we're done. This is great. It's been an awesome day. So I do miss that part every so often. So,
Yeah, I actually understand that. I came from the fashion industry for a little while, which is also very organized chaos, but there is something very special about it. And it's like at the end of the day, you're like, wow, that was really fulfilling. It's kind of crazy, but it was really fulfilling. We got a lot done. And there's something exciting about it. Yeah. Just that action, that movement, everything kind of going. It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's
my wife was in the business. Yeah. My wife was in the business also. And I love going out to dinner. I love food. We love food.
Yeah.
But what I don't like to do is go out. Well, I can't help this, but if I go out to dinner somewhere and I know they're having a rough shift, it gives me agita. Like I'll sit there at the table in the booth, and it's not my restaurant, and I'm just watching, and I'm like, I can feel the agita. My stomach, the pit on my stomach is just like, I know exactly how this team feels right now. And I think when that happens to me, the day that doesn't happen, I'll be done with the business. I'll be done.
That's a good one. That's a good indicator. Yeah.
I'll get in and I'll go, oh man, this is not going well. It's not going. And I feel for him. Because we've been there, so it's I love this.
That's awesome. I could tell. And I'm curious too, because you guys could have gone a franchise route, but instead you decided to stay company owned. So why did you guys choose to expand that way?
I think number one, Chris wanted control of the restaurants, and not that franchising isn't, there are some great franchising groups out there. There are a lot. But we wanted to make sure that we earned the right to grow. And that is one thing that Chris has always kind of, taught us. And one of the things that I continue to go down the road on is earning the right to grow, and not growing too fast. And because once you do that, it's kind of hard to then kind of go backwards. And not that franchising wouldn't help us, because it would. I mean, franchising helps you grow and helps you grow your footprint. But for Chris, it was all about, can we grow Piada organically, and can we grow it as a corporate entity without using franchising right now? And at some point, I'm sure we will franchise at some point. I'm sure that'll happen. But he was really, hey, I want a good base of corporate owned restaurants. And then if we think about franchising, then we can think about it down the road. Our licensing agreement is kind of our first dip your toe a little bit into the water, right? It's one location. We've got plenty of overhead in Dallas and in Texas. The group that we're doing it with, they are super open to, making sure our multi-units are there to, they have their special badges for the airport that they can get in and, and check on things and just work with them to make sure things are going the way they want to go. Because that is a hard part. Once you franchise then it's about who's in control of the day to day, because we're not controlling the day to day. It's picking the right franchisor, and it's like setting them up, making sure you're setting them up for success. And are they open to getting feedback if it's not going the way a Piada should go? And so a lot of it's like, span of control and really, getting that base, growing that base of corporate owned restaurants first. So
that's awesome. And I'm curious too, like even the future of Piada, like what is the long term, the big goal that you guys have that we can kind of look forward to in the future?
I want to be 1,000 restaurants. I think we can be 1,000 restaurants. I mean, listen, we have first mover advantage in Italian fast casual. It is not easy to do. Pasta's tough. We have to, you have to have space to put it in. You have to, par cook it and then cool it and put it in the walk-in, and you have to have space to do it, and then retherming it, per order, couple orders, that the way we do it. So it's not easy. And so, making sure that that's all, going the way it needs to go, is really kind of where we're at. And, I'm sure at some point somebody will knock Piada off. But again, it's not easy. It's not an easy, I mean, none of the restaurant business isn't easy, but the Italian's not easy, because I think, Mexican for Chipotle, is done very well when it comes to fast casual. I think it's easier to do fast casual than Italian. But listen, we're going to continue to run down that road. I mean, it's a wide open spaces, and we're ready to be 1,000 stores, and and we have earned the right to grow. We have earned the right to grow. We are
awesome.
Yeah, I am very bullish on Texas. Love Texas. All of our stores do very well, but Texas has been, fantastic. So
yeah. And that's perfect, because I was going to ask you, like, I know that you guys, you're very, like you said, bullish in Texas. Is there a particular, like, do you look at like, what's the next state we want to kind of tap into? And I'm curious where you guys are planning on going.
Yeah, I think the next two states for new states will be Virginia and Florida. Virginia, maybe not DC proper today, but maybe definitely the outskirts, the suburbs. Virginia's, there's a lot of, you got a lot of government money, you've got, a lot of density. The guests out there are still looking for an amazing Italian, fast casual brand to come to their neighborhood. We're there for them. And then I think, and we have span of control with that. We have enough, multi-unit individuals that we would have, good control of Virginia. And then Florida, and I think Tampa would be first. We've done a lot of tours in Tampa. There's a lot of growth going on in Tampa. Tampa definitely trades like the Midwest. The East Coast of Florida trades like the East Coast of the US. But the West Coast of Florida is more Midwest, and nothing against the East Coast. Excuse me. My wife's from the East Coast, so love the East Coast, but it trades a little bit more like the Midwest. And so, we'll probably do Tampa after that. Tampa will be probably 27, 28. Those markets. Yeah.
And when you're checking out like a different state, are you looking to see, like, how do you actually check and find out, like, is there demand for fast casual, like especially Italian street food? Or are you just looking like, this is a booming market, these are growing?
All of those pieces. We have great relationships with the brokers. We will take, multiple tours. We've done a couple tours in Virginia without even looking at any sites. Like we're not even looking at a particular site. We are driving the markets and trying to understand, do these markets trade like other markets that we're already in and that we do very well. And then you take all that other information, that you can get from the AI or Placer or whatever, and see how those kind of, line up with where we're successful now. And honestly, again, I go back to our competitors, or at least are the folks that we like to be next to. How well is Acava doing in Virginia? How well is Chipotle doing here? How well is, what other brand that we're going to look at, Dave's Hot Chicken, we like being by them also. How are they doing? Because we know if we trade really well in areas outside of that particular new area we're looking at with others, then we'll kind of say, okay, they've done the homework. Yeah. And we'll do that. Another good thing for us, at least in Florida and in Texas, is HEB, the grocer. When HEB puts a huge grocery store in an area that when you tour it doesn't look like it's super dense, although the information you're getting says, hey, this is a pretty good area. The one thing about grocery stores is that they do a lot of homework. Not that we don't. Yeah, but if there's a giant HEB going in and they got this planned and this planned, I'm like, sign me up. Let's go look at this area and see how they're doing, because some of those can be behemoths, and we love being in front of grocery stores. We love being in those complexes. So there's a lot of nuances to look at. How are those grocery stores? What's the Italian like? In that area. I think there are some areas when you have to go up against mom and pop, it might be a little tough for you, tough for us, right? It might be tough for us. And there are some, locations that we've gone into that I didn't think about that in the beginning of saying, how many mom and pop Italian restaurants are there that we're going to go up against and try to, outdo, or at least try to get their guests when their guests have been going to them for years and generations, could be.
That's a tough one. Yeah. Especially those, the sandwich shops. I still go to the same sandwich shops that I went to when I was a kid. The Italian delis. Yeah. And they have some of it's kind of fast food-ish.
No, there's a pizza place in Detroit, and where I grew up, that when I see my friends from high school, we play golf once a year, we go to this place called Buscemi's. And that's what we grew up on. It was Sicilian style. It wasn't, round. It was Sicilian style. And that is our first stop. We pick up whoever from the airport. We drive where we're going. And my buddies are on the phone calling and ordering 2 large Buscemi's pizzas, because that's what we grew up on. And we wouldn't go eat anywhere else, in Detroit for pizza. Oh, we will, but that's our number one choice.
That's where you guys want to go.
That's where we want to go. That's where we're going.
Yeah. So, that's interesting. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing everything. This was really cool. This was really fascinating. I appreciate you sharing all the information. And can you give the listeners an idea of where they can find out more about Piada, about you?
Yeah. So you can get on mypiada.com. That is our website to Piada. And if you want to find out where locations are, if they're by you, where you're living, everything's on there. You can do all the ordering online through there also. And if you want to find out about me, I'm on LinkedIn. And you're more than welcome to ping me if you want to connect and start a chat. As you can see, I don't mind talking, so we can chat. So
yeah. Thank you. And I'll put all the links in the show notes too, just in case someone didn't grab it. And if you guys enjoyed this, if you liked it, feel free to share it with someone else who you think would be inspired by the conversation as well. And thank you again for coming, Lance. This one was really inspiring. Thank you.
Great.